DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass. That is what you're listening to right now. That is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is we need leaders, more leaders, and fewer victims. Now, before I get into this, a couple things that I want to share with you. First of all, let me tell you I have a text line where you can text me and tell me the best insight or worst idea that you heard in today's masterclass. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. It is listed down below in the show notes, just in case you didn't catch that. And the other thing is this. When it comes to these topics, and sometimes when I talk about these kind of things, if I'm mentioning some current event that is going on, or I mention something like Black Lives Matter, or I mention something like social justice and wokeness and things like that, sometimes people have reached out and said, well, Dre, I initially came to your show and liked your stuff when you talk about personal development and personal growth. And this disclaimer is something that I've given before, but I got to say it again because sometimes people didn't hear it and maybe somebody wasn't around when I said it before. But what you all have to understand is that when I talk about things like not being a victim, and I talk about things like why we need people to just be more of leaders, and how victims are becoming the new dictators, and how we can help our own communities from the inside out. This is personal development. It might not be the type of personal development that you were expecting, but it is still personal development. Personal development doesn't just mean, let me tell you how to be confident, or here are 3 tips for discipline, or here's how to be mentally tough when you're facing a bad day. Yes, that's part of it as well. And guess what? I done got 20 episodes on each one of those things and books on all of them as well. Understand that personal development sometimes may come from an angle from which you did not expect. And sometimes personal development may be something that maybe you might not be so excited to hear when you first hear it, but if you actually take it in and you listen and you absorb it and you apply it, you'll realize that it was actually useful for you. And sometimes, I don't do this often, but sometimes I do utilize current events as part of my material because the current event is what sparked the idea for the topic in the first place. So it would be remiss of me to not bring up the thing that actually sparked the idea. And sometimes it might be something that you say that leads to the topic, and sometimes something that just happened on the news yesterday that leads to the topic. So I want to make sure that I'm on a record with that, and I got to go on a record with certain things, people, more than once, because some of y'all understand this, that people don't always listen. I told you this, the 3 truths about human beings in life, that people don't read, people don't think, and people sometimes are lazy. So sometimes you just gotta say things to people more than once, because we all got hard heads as human beings. Most of us don't do things based on the first time we hear them. We gotta hear them 10, 20 times. Anyway, all that being said, what led to this topic was, it was during the NBA playoffs, which as I'm recording this, they're still going on. We're in the finals now by the time that you hear this, but this was during the playoffs. The Brooklyn Nets were playing against the Boston Celtics, and Kyrie Irving, who is a player from the Brooklyn Nets, a star player in the NBA, he used to play for the Boston Celtics, played there for a couple years, and the Nets were about to play a game in Boston. And Kyrie, former Boston player, he knew he was going to get booed when he went to Boston because the way that he left Boston and just his time there in Boston didn't go so great for Kyrie or for the Celtics. So it's been a tradition that every time he goes and plays there, he gets booed by the fans. It's kind of like a fun sports thing that you go back to the team you used to play for, you didn't leave there on such good terms, they boo you. So Kyrie, before that game in Boston, he said that he hopes that there's no racism that happens during the game. What the hell that even means, I don't even know. And then he clarified and said, well, if you want to call this clarification, he said, I don't want there to be any subtle racism coming from the fans. This is what Kyrie said. No subtle racism coming from the fans in Boston during the game. Now, again, that is such a broad statement for him to be making that he could pretty much take anything that happens and say, oh, well, see, here was some subtle racism that I got from the fans. And I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this up in a second. 2 games later, though, something did happen that we don't know if we can call it racist, but something that could be used as proof on behalf of Kyrie and his supporters, I guess. somebody in the stands threw a water bottle in his direction, like after the game or something like that. Now, and again, this could be used as proof. Or Kyrie said, hey, I don't want any racism, and then somebody threw a bottle at me. I don't know if the fan was white or black who threw the bottle, but does it even matter these days when you're dealing with victims? No, it doesn't matter. This could be proof for him. Now, Kyrie Irving, being a influential, powerful, I hope he sees himself as powerful, athlete who makes a lot of money playing basketball. He can do and go as he wishes. It was good use of that, the water bottle throwing incident and the subtle racism that he kind of predicted / asked for. It was useful for him to paint himself as a victim, but it was disappointing for me that he did it. Not even the water bottle thing, because I don't even know what he said after the water bottle, but the fact that he even made the subtle racism comment to paint himself as a victim before anything had even happened to him. Now, this is a guy who has positioned himself and has been recognized by many as one of the leaders, so to speak, and I use the term loosely when I say leaders because leaders have to take people somewhere. And when it comes to the social justice movement that started in the summer of 2020, there's not actually really been any progress made, but there's been a lot of noise made and a lot of attention given, but no actual progress. So it's hard for me to use the term leaders when I'm talking about these individuals. But let's just call him a leader for the sake of the conversation. In this, this is not personal against Kyrie, but we're just using Kyrie as a canvas for which I can paint my point. And even this guy who's been a leader of the social justice movement, even he has found a way to make himself look like a victim and make a public issue out of it for everyone to know. Because the water bottle thing is not like he told everybody about it, they saw it. But the subtle racism comment, he said that. He was talking to the media before the game and he made that comment. Nobody asked him that. He chose to bring that up. And I believe this was strategic. He knew exactly what he was doing because what I just told you yesterday, victims are the new dictators. And I told you why victimhood sells. Why does victimhood sell? That was episode 1613. And no matter how much influence or attention or accomplishment or how high someone can rise in their industry, the allure of victimhood does not elude anyone. All right, anyone can use this allure of victimhood. Even LeBron James made a ridiculous statement that black people are afraid of being gunned down by the cops every single day when we leave our house. He even said it twice to make sure everyone understood what he was saying. Very hyperbolic statement, but he emphasized it in such a way that I guess he wanted that to be taken seriously. And LeBron James is one of the most accomplished athletes of all time. Even he couldn't pass up the allure of victimhood. So even if you are, so today what I'm going to do, I'm going to help all the leaders out. If we have any leaders listening to this, I'm going to help you out. Even if you are leading something that's not working, such as the woke social justice athletes, I'm going to help you be more effective by eliminating one of your biggest issues, which is the fact that you are running on the hamster wheel of victimhood and insist on winning that rat race of being the biggest victim. It's like the victimhood Olympics. We got the Olympics coming up. Everybody's just trying to win the gold medal. I'm the bigger victim. No, this happened to me. I'm a victim. No, this happened to me. I'm a victim. I'm going to help solve that issue for everybody here today. And if you are even thinking about getting into this rat race, I'm going to give you a vaccine for that victimhood so that you don't get the disease and you don't even jump into this Olympic competition because you're probably not going to win. Somebody can out-victim you no matter how much of a victim you think you are. All that tongue-in-cheek. Now let's get into our points. Point number one, topic once again, is we need more leaders than we need more victims. Understand that being a victim is passive energy. It's more on the feminine side of energy, as I talked about in the emasculation episode. And let me refer you to that. I referred to that episode each of the last 2 or 3 days, but that was episode 1841, the emasculation of men. And then I told you how we bring masculinity back, which is episode 1863. So make sure you check both of those. Being a victim is passive because something was done to you, or you predict something's going to be done to you, Kyrie Irving, and you're subject to it. Being that things, externalities, which we talked about in episode number 1879, being that these things can happen to all of us, all kinds of things happen to all of us every single day. The option of being a victim, therefore, is always available to every one of us. And if you really think about it, there's always something that's happening from the outside world, which we do not control. Every single day, we have a choice of feeling like victims. Every one of us has this option available. So my question is, will you take it? These days, it's become very popular to take the victimhood option. I think everybody knows this. Now, as I told you yesterday, victims are the new dictators. So being a victim is the new way to acquire power and attention, or it's a new way. It's not the way, but it's one way to acquire power and attention. Now, it used to be that you had to have power to get power and attention, and leaders aren't active. Here's the thing that you got to understand about being a leader versus being a victim. Leaders are people who get active and they happen to things. They don't have things happen to them. Now, just to be clear, things happen to all of us. And we can choose to happen to things all the time. But here's the difference between the leader's mindset and the victim's mindset. Is the leader's mindset is, I'm going to go happen to things, and that's going to have a bigger impact on my status and my outcomes in life than the things that happen to me. And that's the difference between the leader's mindset and the victim's mindset. The leader says, what I do to things will have more of an impact on my life. And the victim says, what things get done to me will have more of an impact on my life. Or at least they emphasize the things that happen to them more than they emphasize the things that they do. The question is, which one are you going to do? I'll give you an example. When I was a college basketball player, once I was talking to my coach, just me and him talking, not amongst the team. And he had pulled me aside and he said, Dre, every time you get into a collision on the court, and this was like, he was talking about practice, not during the games. We're talking about practice. So he would say, every time you get into a collision on the court in practice, you end up being the one who falls on the ground. And the person you collided with, they're still standing up. So when are you going to start being the person who is dishing out the punishment and knocking other people down instead of being the person who is getting knocked down? He just asked me that open question. He didn't ask me to answer it, but he was just making a point to me. The point was, well, he was kind of making 2 points at the same time. Number one, maybe you need to get in the weight room and get a little bit stronger, so when you bump into a teammate, you're not falling all over the place and you can maybe knock them down. And number two, maybe you need to play a little bit more aggressively. So instead of you getting knocked down, you can start knocking other people down. And I got the message clearly because here 20 years later and I'm talking about it and telling you the story. This is the difference between being a victim and being a leader. Now, what he was saying in that situation, he was kind of sort of saying you're kind of being the victim of these collisions, but it's not like I was complaining about it. So it's a little bit different, but I think you get the point, which is, are you going to be the one, since there's going to be a collision anyway, are you going to be the one moving people out the way and knocking them down, or are you going to be the one getting knocked down? And it is a choice, everybody. This is a choice. Which one are you going to be? Now, when he said it to me, I had never thought of it that way, but when I did think of it, I thought, you know what, he is right. I am getting, if I bump into one of my teammates, they're kind of stronger than me, so they're knocking me down. And I'm not really initiating the contact as much, so maybe I need to initiate more contact, and I can knock them down just using the momentum. It wasn't even necessarily about the weight room. It's really about creating the momentum of looking for the contact rather than letting the contact come and find me. So I didn't like hearing it at the moment when he said it, but when I thought about it, I said, you know what, he's right. I need to get a little bit stronger, and I need to play a little bit more aggressively, or maybe a lot stronger and a lot more aggressively. But he was 100% correct in saying that, and he was making it was a clear metaphor between exactly what I'm telling you right now, between being a leader and being a victim. You understand it? Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is we need more leaders than we need more victims. Number 2, you cannot be a leader and a victim at the same time. You got to choose. It's against the laws of physics to be a leader and a victim at once. You must choose which one are you being. Key word, being. As I talked about in my book, The Mirror of Motivation. Who are you being as a person? Who you're being leads to your actions, and your actions lead to your results. One reason why we as a society, as a whole, are so short on solid leadership today is because many of the alleged leaders, they want to be world leaders one moment, and they want to galvanize all the people to go and do this thing or stand up against this thing and be part of this movement. One moment they want to do that, then the next moment they want to make a show of their victimhood. They keep going back and forth between being a leader and a victim, at least in their minds. Understand something. Nobody follows a victim. This is why it's impossible to be a victim and a leader at the same time. Leaders have people who will follow them and go along with what they're doing. Victims, nobody follows a victim. People can feel bad for a victim. People can recognize a victim. People can say, damn, that's fucked up what happened to that victim. But nobody follows a victim. Again, people might listen to you because you're a victim. I just told you victims are the new dictators. You can draw a huge audience to yourself by making a show of your victimhood. And I think we've seen many examples of this. There are victims who get book deals and TV shows, and their followers go up 100-fold on social media because they made a display of their victimhood. So you can draw attention by being a victim, but you cannot get anyone to follow you when you're a victim. Human beings, this is just part of our wiring as humans. We will always, have always, will always, and do always follow strength. Nobody follows weakness. I can pity the weak. I can give charity to the weak. I can choose to lend my voice and speak up on behalf of the weak. But I will never follow weakness. I will only follow strength. When you are in the state of being a victim, even if all you're doing is just complaining about something with this feminized energy, specifically you males out there, in that state, you are weakened, and the females as well. If you're in a state of complaining about something that happened to you, and you're feeling that extreme feminized energy, like on the extreme pole of the feminine energy, nobody's gonna follow you. Again, people can help you out. People will listen to you, but nobody's gonna follow you. Like, who wants to follow somebody who's always has stuff happening to them and they ain't happening to anything else? Where are you leading me? I'm not following that. Even the least intelligent person in the world is not gonna follow a victim. Why? Where are you gonna take me? Now, you ain't going anywhere. You're not having any impact on anything. It looks like everything's impacting you, but you ain't impacting anything else. Who's gonna follow that? The answer is nobody. People cannot put themselves behind a victim. I mean, would you put yourself behind a victim? Where are they gonna take you? No, you wouldn't do it, and neither would anybody else. All right? You don't have to have an advanced college degree to understand that following a victim is a losing strategy. Everyone understands this. It just subconsciously, we all understand it. A 5-year-old is not gonna follow a victim. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is that we need leaders much more than we need victims. No individual human being can advance in life while seeing themselves as a victim. So not only can you not get anyone to follow you, nor can you even follow yourself. You can't even lead yourself to anything when you're seeing yourself as a victim. You can't even lead yourself to action when you feel like a victim. Because what is the mindset of a victim? Things are happening to me more than I'm happening to things. So how can you lead yourself to do anything proactive if your mentality is whatever life decides to do to me is pretty much going to be my destiny and be my outcome? It's impossible. Okay? It's against the laws of physics, folks. So you have to choose, are you a victim or are you a leader? This wave of victimhood, again, though it attracts attention, this is where the conflict comes in, because we're in the attention economy. People want attention because when you get attention, it gives you that dopamine rush. And when you open up your social media apps, and you see all those notifications and you see you got new followers and people are supporting you, if you want to call it that, a quick way to get that is by being a victim. It's a shortcut to getting that kind of attention, getting that dopamine hit. And that's a chemical that runs through the body. It's a real thing. That's one way to get it. Another way to get it is to have some actual power and some actual leadership traits, but that's a harder way. It takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit more effort, and a lot more responsibility. So a lot of people will take the shortcut. Why not? Now, why take the steps when you can take the escalator? So this is a choice that you have to make. This wave of victimhood attracts attention, which is what makes it popular, and this is why so many people are choosing victimhood instead of choosing leadership, because leadership is much more work, and it takes a lot more time. So you basically got to make a choice of what you want to do. You want the candy bar or you want the meat and potatoes? The candy bar is easier. Candy bar is more fun. I might go get me a candy bar after I'm done recording this. It's now that I even said it, I'm thinking about it. This is just our wiring as human beings. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you as a person. It's just our wiring as people. So what is the element that allows you to choose leadership over victimhood? Well, it starts with a D. It's called discipline, or mental toughness, or confidence, or personal initiative. What do you know? 4 principles of working on your game philosophy. And my newest book, The Third Day, the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. Notice that key word, decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. It's not something that happens to you. It's not some random happenstance occurrence that could happen to anybody in life. It's a choice. You decide, do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a victim? Again, as long as you're alive, you have a choice, leader or victim. Now, if you're dead, okay, you could be a victim and I won't argue with you. But if you're alive, you got a choice. Let me tell you something that Frederick Douglass said. And Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist, so he was a slave, then he escaped, then he became an abolitionist. He wrote an autobiography, and he taught himself how to read and write. Well, he was taught a little bit by the wife of his white slave owner, and then when his slave owner, the man, found out that his wife was teaching the slave how to read, he told her, hey, you can't do that. But by that point, he had learned enough that he could teach himself. So he taught himself how to read and write. Then when he escaped slavery and became free, he became a very devout abolitionist and wrote his own autobiography. If you have not read that book, I would suggest you go get it, and you can probably, because it was written so long ago, it's probably out of copyright, so you can download it for free online. So go find the autobiography of Frederick Douglass and read it. He said the following, quote, "Human nature is so constituted that it cannot honor a helpless man, although it can pity him. And even this it cannot do long if the signs of power do not arise." Now, what does that mean? I'll translate what Frederick Douglass said, even though it's pretty clear. Let me translate it in my language anyway. Victims can earn temporary sympathy, but temporary sympathy is not a long-term success strategy. Being a victim is not a long-term success strategy. It can work in the short term, though. Unfortunately, it appears that many people are being trained to be a victim instead of a victor. And understand there is a choice between the two. Recapping today's class, which is we need leaders much more than we need victims. The situation that led me to thinking about this was Kyrie Irving, who has been looked at as a leader of the social justice movement, painted himself as a victim before anything had even happened to him, talking about he was concerned with any subtle racism coming from the crowd, whatever the fuck that means. It means absolutely nothing. But this is all that it takes to make yourself look like a victim these days. And even people who have accrued positions of leadership and power and success, like Kyrie Irving, are not immune to jumping into the victimhood pool when they see the attention that it can draw for them very quickly. So my aim today is to get you out of the rat race of victimhood that many people insist on trying to win this race. The problem with winning the rat race is you're still a rat. Point number one. Being a victim is passive. Something was done to you and you're subject to it. Being that things, so externalities happen to all of us, the option of being a victim is always available to everybody. So the question is, are you going to take it or are you not going to take it? Being that victims are the new dictators, I understand why people are jumping to it. It's a quick way to acquire power and attention. It used to be that having power was the way to get power. Nowadays, you can just have something happen to you instead of you happening to other things. But like my college coach told me, are you going to be the one getting knocked down or are you going to be the one knocking people down? You can't do both at the same time, unless you both knock each other down. But even then, you're still being the victim getting knocked down. But I think you get my point. Point number two, you cannot be a leader and a victim at the same time. It's against the laws of physics. One reason why we are so short of solid leadership these days is because people keep vacillating. They want to be a leader one day, and then they want to make a show of their victimhood the next day so they can keep the attention up. Nobody follows a victim, all right? Not even animals follow victims. Why? Because this is part of our wiring. It's part of our unconscious wiring. Even animals who can't think rationally will never follow a victim. They will kill and destroy the victims in their pack because they're slowing the whole pack down. When you're in a state of being a victim, even just complaining about it, with this feminized energy, you are weakened and nobody will follow weak energy. Point number three, no individual can advance in life while seeing themselves as a victim. It is impossible. The wave of victimhood does attract attention, which is what makes it popular. But as Frederick Douglass said, quote, "Human nature is so constituted that it cannot honor a helpless man, although it can pity him. And even this it cannot do long if the signs of power do not arise." You can earn, this is out of the quote now, you can earn temporary sympathy and attention by being a victim, but victimhood is not a long-term success strategy. And you will see this. Over the next 3 or 4 years, you will see, and it might not even take that long, all the victims are going to have to find new strategies or they will just fade away and we'll never hear from them again. That's what's going to happen to most of them since they are not learning these things that I'm telling you right now, these principles that I'm sharing with you. Many people are being trained to be a victim, but not a victor. I'm telling you, you have to choose which one are you going to be, a victim or a victor. Are things happening to you or are you happening to things? You get to pick every single day. And in my book, The Third Day, the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs, I show you how to make that decision on a day-to-day basis. It's not a one-time decision, it's an everyday decision. Send me a text. Tell me the best thing you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. and work on your game. Dre all day.